Welcome back to the Stormcrow Show. I'm Brady.
And I'm Josh.
And today we are covering a Magic the Gathering theory, I guess you would call it. Josh, why don't you talk to us exactly what we're doing here?
So, we've noticed that with Modern Masters 2015 and 2017, respectively, or Modern Masters 2 and 3, the Wizard seems to be seeding cards of strategies or archetypes, if you will, that at least at the time, not super popular or really viable even in the modern format. But the following standard sets in the following fall and then winter seem to provide cards that directly allow those archetypes to be more viable. Which is it's kind of a complicated saying, but maybe let's just start with Modern Masters 2015. Because I think that's a really good example.
That'll exactly show what we're looking at. So, in Modern Masters 2015, we saw an Eldrazi theme pop up in the set itself. Yep. We saw cards like the Eldrazi Titans, Eye of Ugin, and Eldrazi Temple, all in that set. And at the time, Eldrazi wasn't really a viable idea in Modern.
Right.
But then, what did we see the following fall? We saw Battle for Zendikar come out, which gave us some new Eldrazi toys to play with.
Yep.
And then the following, winter, spring set.
Winter, I think, is what it is.
Okay. We had Oath of the Gatewatch, which really was what tipped the scale in favor of the Eldrazi. And cards that had been printed in Modern Masters 2015, like mostly the lands, like Eye of Ugin and Eldrazi Temple, they suddenly just shot up in price and popularity.
Right.
Because suddenly you could play a very powerful Eldrazi deck, whereas prior to the Battle for Zendikar block, you were pretty much the only Eldrazi you ever saw in a modern game was Emrakul the Aeon's Torn.
Right.
And that wasn't because it was an Eldrazi, it was just because it was a big game finisher.
Right.
So we saw card prices go up. We had the Eldrazi Winter. Eye of Ugin eventually got banned.
Right.
But not before hitting about $50.
Yeah, I'll try to find the graph. I think when it was reprinted in Modern Masters 2015, I think the price dropped to like $5 or $7 a card in July or around that time. And then it went up, like you said, to $50 right after or right about Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch, if my memory serves me correctly. But I'll try to get the graph just to show you kind of what happens for our viewers.
Thank you. That would be interesting to see. But either way, the fact is, it was almost like Wizards was planning on helping create a new deck archetype by starting it off with reprints in the Modern Master set and following it up with cards in the newer sets that were coming out, cards that would synergize and just work really well together. So, with that in mind, let's fast forward to 2017, and Josh, what did we see in Modern Masters 2017 that was kind of an odd duck?
Yeah, and I should mention, when I noticed this oddity with the Eldrazi lands, I thought I should take a careful look at Modern Masters 3, or Modern Masters 2017, and see if there are any mechanics or cards that just kind of showed up and really didn't make much sense in the given known meta, or I'm using all these big fancy words, but basically what was popular and powerful and viable as a deck in Modern during the time these cards were reprinted in the Modern Masters 2017 box. And that's the Miracle mechanic. Now, I love this mechanic. This is my favorite mechanic. But at the same time, not viable in Modern at all. There's no Brainstorm, no Jace the Mind Sculptor, no Sensi's Divining Top. I mean, they're either banned or not available. And so they reprinted all the Mythic Miracles. Now, some, like Bonfire and Temporal Mastery, are used in fringe decks. So it didn't, totally not make sense. But Terminus got reprinted? I was kind of surprised. Yeah. I was like, why did you even bother printing that card? Because it's used in... It wasn't that expensive. And then Entreat was printed. Well, that sort of made sense. The other two Mythics were printed, and they were used already, so why not? But even Thunderous Wrath was reprinted, which is probably the best non-rare or Mythic in the miracle mechanic. So I thought to myself, and you thought this too, that we should check out what Ixalan, or in this, which was the fall set, and what came out in Ixalan.
We got Opt. Which, like, as Josh can well attest to, if you want to play Miracles, you want a card that scries and then draws.
Yep.
Not the other way around. So that was a real interesting help. But also in Rivals of Ixalan, we got a new card that is called Riverwise Augur. And why don't you tackle this? Because this really is your bread and butter here.
Yeah, and I'm kicking myself because I read the card and I thought, oh, I wonder if that's for Miracles, and then never thought about it really carefully, even though I was kind of prepared for it. But if you read it, it's 4 mana, you get a 2/2 creature, so nothing amazing. It's in blue, by the way. It enters the battlefield, and it's basically says Brainstorm. Draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. Notably, by the way, this is the same exact mana cost, I think, or same converted mana cost as Jace the Mind Sculptor, which is one reason why people probably want Jace, so they can play Miracles, maybe. I don't know how viable that is, but the fact is, at the end of the day, someone actually made a deck that uses Opt and Riverwise Augur, and a few other cards like Telling Time. And they actually won, I guess, some online tournament. Okay, so now all of a sudden we have a viable... It's a blue-white Miracles deck. I'll put a link in the description below. But the point is, we have the Eldrazi Winter. Okay, so probably a bit overkill in terms of how they synergized with it. But now we have Miracles at least being somewhat viable. Now, it was already... I was able to kind of force its way into viability, at least in my experience online. But now we have the more traditional blue-white Miracles deck that at least can be played. So that begs the question... What happens with Modern Masters 2019? And I probably should caveat, though, I think you said this, but in case you didn't and I forgot, which is fully possible, I've been fighting a cold, or getting over one. We're not seeing this really in Iconic Masters or Eternal Masters. We're thinking this is more of a Modern Masters thing.
Yeah, so if you guys notice anything in Iconic Masters or Eternal Masters that maybe we're missing that does have ramifications in the modern format, please, leave a comment for sure. But yeah, like looking at 2019 for Modern Masters, this will cover through the cons block. Yep. So really the 2 new blocks that it will cover are the Theros block and the cons block.
Right.
Which both of those had mechanics that, personally, I think the mechanics were very good.
Yep.
But they just weren't... They were never viable for the modern format, mainly because, for one thing, either the cards themselves weren't very good, or... that was mostly it, was that the cards weren't very good.
Yeah, and no, sorry, go ahead.
So, a couple... I'm just spitting out a couple examples here.
Sure.
Manifest and Inspired. I completely blanked out there for a minute.
Yeah.
Those were very interesting mechanics, and you could potentially build very good cards with those mechanics. But it was almost like the ones that we ended up getting were kind of scaled back versions.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be interesting if in 2019, if later sets gave us the synergy needed to build good decks with these mechanics that were modern playable?
Yeah, I think in the examples you gave, like for Inspired, I mean, the best synergy I can think of right now is with vehicles. But like you said, most Inspired cards are really just not very good. But there are a few that at least are, passable, I think. And I could see Wizards not really wanting to make a better version of that card for obvious reasons. Like, one's basically a Bob.
Yeah,
for example.
For sure.
So, but I could see better Inspired cards getting printed in the future to synergize with the current vehicles, like, say, Smuggler's Copter, and that might allow some synergies. So they might reprint the better Inspired cards in the Modern Master sets, also probably some of the worst ones, obviously the lower rarities, but so that way if that mechanic comes back again, they're allowed to kind of synergize together with vehicles. That's my thinking here, is how that might work out. For Manifest, how this might look, I suppose, is maybe some sort of anthem for face down cards, or something that reduces face down card costs, or something like that, or some other benefit, I suppose, for having a face down card.
Sure.
So it's hard to know, of course. I'm not saying they necessarily go out of their way, but it's interesting how two Modern Master sets in a row have seeded these cards, and then the following standard sets have provided cards that actually work with those cards. So you can build a deck. It's kind of cool in one sense, because Miracles is not a very expensive mechanic, period.
Right, no. They're definitely not going to break the budget when it comes to building a deck, if you're intent on building a really good Modern deck.
Yeah, it's the lands that will do it.
Yeah, as always. Anyways, any final thoughts, Josh?
No, but I'll keep thinking after this.
Oh, that's good. Same here.
Yeah, I'll leave a comment. Please subscribe. If you like us doing this sort of content, let us know. If there's other stuff you want us to talk about, please let us know that too, because that will help us know what people like to watch. Is there anything else?
No. So thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, I'm Brady. I'm not Brady. You're Brady. I'm Josh.
I'm Brady. Have a good day, everyone. This has been the Stormcrow Show.